We have been told a lie by a world obsessed with speed. We have been told that to slow down is to fade, and to be careful is to admit defeat. But look at the world around you. The most precious things on this planet are handled with the greatest care. A centuries-old scripture, a rare diamond, a master's violin, none of these are thrown about with the recklessness of a toy. As you enter your later years, you are moving from being a tool used by society to becoming a treasure preserved by the soul. The reason you must be careful is not because you are fragile in spirit, but because you are now a vessel of immense value. You are carrying a lifetime of stories, lessons, and loves. You wouldn't carry a bucket of gold the same way you carry a bucket of sand. You would be careful. You would be deliberate. In your youth, your body was a wild horse. It took you where you wanted to go, often without asking for permission. You pushed it, you neglected it, and it bounced back. But in the autumn of life, the relationship changes. Your body is no longer a servant. It is a partner. In many traditions, the body is seen as a temple. An old temple has cracks in the walls, not because it is failing, but because it has stood the ground against 1,000 storms. When we say be careful with your physical self, watch your step, eat with intention, rest with devotion, we are not talking about fear, we are talking about stewardship. Spiritually, the slowing down of the body is a divine invitation. It is the universe's way of saying, stop looking at the horizon and start looking at the flower at your feet. When you must walk slowly, you finally have the time to notice the texture of the leaves and the rhythm of your own breath. The carefulness of your movements becomes a walking meditation. In old age, energy is no longer a limitless ocean. It is a sacred well. You must be careful where you pour your water. In your 20s and 30s, you wasted energy on anger, on proving people wrong, on chasing shadows. Now, you must be a spiritual architect. Every ounce of energy you spend should be an investment in peace. If a conversation drains you, walk away. If a memory haunts you, release it. Being careful means being selective. You are now in the business of essentialism. You only have room for what is real, what is kind, and what is beautiful. Motivational speakers often tell us to go full throttle, but there is a specific power in the second gear. This is the gear of observation. When you are careful with your words, your silence becomes more powerful than any speech. When you are careful with your time, your presence becomes a gift to those around you. Think of the great oak tree. It does not run, it does not shout, it stands. It is careful to root itself deep so that it can reach high. Your carefulness is your rooting process. You are settling into the truth of who you are, away from the noise of who the world wanted you to be. Section 4, overcoming the fear of fragility. There is a profound spiritual strength in admitting that we need to be careful. It is the ultimate act of ego dissolution. The ego wants to pretend it is invincible. The soul knows it is eternal, but the costume it wears, the body, is temporary. By being careful, you are honoring the costume. You are saying, I am grateful for these hands that have worked, these eyes that have cried, and these legs that have traveled. I will treat them with the tenderness they deserve. Carefulness is the bridge between doing and being. It is the transition from the warriorship of youth to the sageship of old age. You are not protecting yourself from the world. You are preserving your light so that it may shine steadily until the very last moment. The mantra for part 1, I move with grace, I choose with wisdom, and I honor the temple that has carried me home. The second stage of our journey into the wisdom of aging takes us away from the physical temple and deep into the corridors of the mind and the sanctuary of the soul. In our youth, we were focused on conquering the external world, building careers, raising families, and seeking validation from the eyes of others. But as we grow older, the landscape of our battle changes. The most important territory you will ever govern is the space between your thoughts. This is why you must be careful with your inner life. The mind is a garden. In old age, your mind becomes a concentrated garden. In a vast forest, a few weeds do not matter, but in a small walled garden, a single weed can choke the most beautiful flower. You must be careful to guard your mind against the weeds of bitterness, regret, and cynicism. It is easy to look back and see only the things that went wrong, the missed opportunities, the betrayals, or the what-ifs. But dwelling on these is like drinking poison and expecting it to nourish you. Being careful means practicing spiritual discernment. When a thought enters your mind, ask yourself, does this thought bring me peace or does it bring me pain? If it brings pain, you no longer have the luxury of entertaining it. You are the gatekeeper. You must be careful to only allow thoughts of gratitude and forgiveness to take root. Forgiveness is not something you do for others. It is a gift of safety you give to yourself. By forgiving, you ensure that your inner fortress remains a place of light rather than a dungeon of old grudges, the trap of mental noise. We live in an age of constant noise. News, technology, and the frantic energy of the younger generations can feel overwhelming. In old age, you must be careful not to let the chaos of the world disturb your internal rhythm. The soul requires silence to speak. If you fill every hour with the distractions of the television or the grievances of the world, you will miss the subtle whispers of your own intuition. Carefulness in this context is about setting boundaries. It is okay to disconnect. It is okay to say, I do not have the emotional room for this tragedy or that argument. This is not indifference, it is preservation. You are keeping your spirit calm so that you can be a pillar of strength for others. A stormy sea cannot reflect the moon, and a cluttered mind cannot reflect the divine. The strength of emotional resilience. Many people believe that getting older means becoming more sensitive or thin-skinned. Spiritually, the opposite should be true. You should become like a mountain, weathered, yes, but unmovable. You must be careful not to let your happiness depend on the attention or approval of others. Often, the elderly feel invisible in a society that worships youth. If you are not careful, this feeling of invisibility can turn into a feeling of worthlessness. But here is the motivational truth. The stars are invisible during the day, but that doesn't mean they aren't there. Your value is inherent. It does not come from being seen by a distracted world. Being careful means anchoring your self-worth in your spiritual identity rather than your social utility. The legacy of peace. Finally, we must be careful with our spirit because we are the ancestors for those following behind us. The way you handle your old age is a map for your children and grandchildren. If you are careful to remain joyful despite the aches and hopeful despite the losses, you are teaching them that life is a victory to the very end. Your inner fortress is not just for you, it is a shelter for everyone who comes into your presence. When people sit with you, they should feel the carefulness of a soul that has been refined by time. They should feel a peace that is not fragile but solid. You are the guardian of the flame. Keep it steady. Keep it bright. The final stage of our journey is the most profound. It is the arrival at the radiant horizon. In the previous stages, we discussed the care of the physical body and the guarding of the inner mind. Now we must speak of the spirit's ultimate purpose. In old age, you must be careful not to view yourself as a closing book, but as a masterpiece that is finally being revealed in its entirety. This is the stage of transcendence, where we move beyond the self and connect with the eternal, the purpose of the sunset. Why must we be careful in our final years? Because there's a temptation to believe that our work is done. Many people fall into the trap of waiting rather than living. But in the spiritual economy, there is no retirement. Your purpose has simply shifted. You are no longer here to build structures. You are here to build spirits. You must be careful to recognize the power of your influence. A single word of encouragement from an elder can change the trajectory of a young person's life. Your stories are not just memories. They are blueprints for survival. If you are not careful to share your wisdom, that light disappears with you. Motivation in old age comes from understanding that you are a bridge. You stand between the past and the future, and your strength allows others to cross over into their own potential. The art of letting go. One of the most difficult things to be careful about in old age is the grip we have on the world. We spend 70 or 80 years accumulating titles, possessions, reputations, and even grief. But as we approach the horizon, we must be careful to practice the art of letting go spiritually. Death is not a loss, it is a shedding. Like a traveler who must leave their heavy luggage behind to climb a high mountain, we must lighten our load. If you cling too tightly to who you used to be, the executive, the athlete, the provider, you will miss the beauty of who you are becoming. Being careful in this stage means being mindful of your attachments. Release the need to control your children's lives. Release the need for things to be exactly as they were. In this release, you find a freedom that youth can never understand. The beauty of the final perspective. From the top of a mountain, you can see the entire valley. In the same way, old age provides a perspective that is impossible to have in the middle of the struggle. You must be careful to use this perspective to find the hidden harmony in your life. You can now see how even the tragedies and the heartbreaks were threads in a larger tapestry. This is the time to cultivate radiant joy. This is not the loud, boisterous joy of a party, but the quiet, glowing joy of a sunset. It is a joy that says, I have seen it all, and it was good. You must be careful to stay in this state of gratitude. Gratitude is the vibration that connects the human heart to the divine. When you live in gratitude, the fear of the end vanishes. You realize that you are not a wave disappearing into the shore, but the ocean itself, the grand transition. Finally, we must be careful to view the end of life with dignity and curiosity rather than dread. Every spiritual tradition tells us that this life is a school, a preparation for something much larger. If you have been careful with your body, careful with your mind, and careful with your legacy, then the final transition is not a fall into darkness, but a step into the light. Think of a candle. As the wax runs low, the flame often flickers more brightly. That is your spirit. Even as the physical vessel nears its limit, your internal light can reach its peak intensity. Be careful to keep your eyes on the horizon. Do not look back at the shadows. Look forward at the glow. You have run the race. You have kept the faith, and you have guarded the treasure. Conclusion. Being careful in old age is the ultimate act of love. It is loving yourself enough to protect your peace, loving others enough to share your wisdom, and loving the Creator enough to return your soul in a state of grace. You are the gold that has been refined in the fire of time. Shine on, for the world has never needed your light more than it does right now.